We shot a feature film with hundreds of thousands of dollars of camera equipment for $0. And in this video, I want to talk about how you can make your mediocre budget, no budget film with Hollywood camera gear. And the first step, part of all of that, is to write a good story. Because a good story brings a good cinematographer, which brings good producers, good actors, and you're off to the races. So thank you guys so much for listening, watching, and learning. I hope you guys learned a lot in this video. You can rate, comment, subscribe. The first step is obviously having a good story. But for some reason, even at the point of where we are in filmmaking after a century of making films, it's still tough to land on a good story. So instead of putting all of our chips into writing a good script, which is a difficult process, we're gonna talk about some key features that people want to cling onto your project. The first thing to recognize is that you don't need to buy your own gear, own anything. Every single film that I've made up to this point on a higher scale passion project, I've used like a couple items of my own gear and usually a cinematographer's kit or a gearhouse's kit. Remember that if there's no big money involved, meaning you're not making a big paycheck off of this or you're not making anything off of this and everyone's putting their passion into this, whether it's a gear house with hundreds of thousands of dollars of camera equipment, a cinematographer, or even a producer, they'll want to get involved. So how do you get this gear? How do you put it onto your film? Here are some techniques that I use. One, find a cinematographer that you want to work with and maybe they have their own gear. The next thing is to figure out what would something be that they would like to put on their resume. If let's say there's strictly a commercial cinematographer that has a good style, perhaps they want some narrative work on their demo reel and they're willing to shoot this just to put some stuff on their reel. You can use this as a currency to get them excited without using the word opportunity. The next thing to get people excited about your film, whether it's a gear house or a cinematographer with their own gear, is interesting idea, so good concept, cool inspiration, and an interesting style. So for example, how we were able to get a ton of gear for our last short film was that we were shooting in this beautiful, stunning home. Almost everyone on the team, whether it was the production designer or the cinematographer or the company that provided us gear set ready, they were all excited because they knew the film already had done its homework. And especially if the setting looks cool, a cinematographer might be less excited about a story and just more excited about how their work can be shown in a certain space. So let's say you don't have that Oscar-winning story or that crazy script. What's a concept people can get excited about? Is it a POV feature film that's shot all entirely from the main character's perspective so that it feels kind of like a video game? Or perhaps it's a futuristic Blade Runner-esque film that's shot very dark and moody. These are all elements that I've used in prior films because I've realized that in order to get a team attached to it, they'll want to have something cool on their demo reel, not only just visually, but also narratively. And these are fun things to get people excited about. My next tip is timing. You will want to time when you shoot your project around when people have availability. Camera gear will be at the most expensive rental price when it is peak busy season. Here in Canada, during the summer and on weekdays, there's gonna be a lot of people shooting stuff. But in off season or on weekends, gear is a little less utilized. So I can go to a gear place or I can go to a shooter or I can even go on Facebook Marketplace and talk to people about using their gear on my cool sci-fi film in this awesome house, and they might be more inclined to give it to me at a discounted rate, if not for free. My next tip is don't be afraid to offer money as pro bono, so after the film is done. If you have anticipation to make some cash, if you're gonna sell your movie, let's say it's a feature film, and even if it's a short film and there's an avenue where there can be some money to come in, feel free to offer that as like a pro bono payment. Now, a lot of filmmakers know that there's usually no money involved in short films and there's sometimes money in feature films, but this is how we got all of this gear for our film Sway. Our cinematographer, Chris Moresby, the absolute legendary camera person and great dude, acted as an executive producer, provided all his gear in exchange for money on the back end. If the film ended up gaining money, he would be reimbursed for all of the gear rentals that we did. Another thing that we used on our feature film was we got our cinematographer to hop on as being an EP, so an executive producer. You can also use credits in a film as a currency. Perhaps maybe they want to dive into the producing space a little bit more, or maybe have a bit more of a voice in the post-production process, and maybe just expand their portfolio as storytellers. This can be a tool that you can use. So cinematography will be a cinematographer, maybe a camera operator, and then on top of that, an executive producer of the film. When it comes to timing, remember that camera people, and anybody in the technical field hate sitting around and would much rather tell a story than just be sitting at their home skimming Instagram. And if, again, that story's cool, they'll probably want to hop on and work on your film for free or at a discounted rate. Okay, this is a big tip. Get gear insurance. This means that those who are providing you with their hundreds of thousands of dollars of camera equipment, if they don't have it, if you have something called production insurance, they will be much more willing to provide you with your gear. If you're just some rinky-dink production that's gonna use their camera gear and have the camera out the back of a vehicle, and if that already gets destroyed, you're like, oh, I'm sorry. It's gonna be a little bit more difficult. What I would recommend is finding a production company that's in the area that you live in. And if they've worked on some bigger projects, chances are they have production insurance. You would reach out to them and say, hey, to put your company title at the beginning of this, I'm planning on working with this cinematographer. They need production insurance. Can you produce my film or become an executive producer on my film in exchange for your production insurance? And I'll throw you $300 to $500 for that. I know $300 to $500 is a lot of money, but it can go very far when it comes to getting hundreds of thousands of dollars of gear in exchange. And if you don't know how to find fellow filmmakers in your area, or perhaps maybe that's a lot more limited, this tip is not necessarily the be-all, end-all. Sometimes people just want to hop on your film without production insurance, or they might already have it to begin with, but this is also just another thing that can incentivize people to hop on your project because it appears as if you've done your homework. The next thing I would recommend is have work to show, whether it's been a set that you were on, a film that you've made, a demo reel that you've pieced together, or a script that you've written that you're really proud of. Any sort of work that you can show really goes a long way. And even if you don't have work to show, for example, on our film Clementine, even though I had work to show, the things that I brought to my cinematographer was a pitch deck. I put together all of the imagery and visual style along with a score, and it built out this world so that when the cinematographer was reading through it, they were able to get this full image of the project knowing that I'd done my homework beforehand. If you're just someone reaching out to these people asking for help, but you've done no work on your end, people will be less inclined to get involved. It costs $0 to build a pitch deck out. Just go onto a website like ShotDeck, grab some stills, put it into a deck, write some words around it around the bottom, and I'll link a video in the description below that does this a lot more deeper in explanation. My biggest tip, above all else, is be cool. Now, that doesn't mean like wearing your hat backwards and putting sunglasses on. While you might look like a cool person, feel like a cool person, it just means like, don't be a dick. Eradicate your ego, eradicate any sort of insecurity around your project, and just be like super hyped about what you're making and hyped about the people who you're trying to get involved.
Yeah, but then once we're actually in the pool, just give me some out of focus stuff here.
Love it.
Let me have the shot.
Okay, I like it.
Let me have the shot.
Remember that you are the hype man of your own film, and if you can get people excited, just as excited as you are about the film, they're going to want to push so far to make it happen. There's this great TED Talk online, which basically talks about this one lonely dancer in the park, and basically he's by himself dancing, everyone's looking at him like he's an idiot, and it only takes that one extra dancer to dance beside him before a whole crowd joins and it becomes this full dance party. So all you really need to do is find that extra dancer to dance beside you with your project, with your crazy wild idea, and eventually it will snowball. But if you're doing this by yourself, it might be a little bit more difficult, so I'd highly recommend attaching someone onto the project who can help you push that ball further, and that could be producer, cinematographer, actor, or even a script writer. Have that second person in your corner, and I promise you the project will grow.
If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow.
Love you guys. You're the best. And goodbye. You can also subscribe, hit some buttons, and that helps out almost everything. Everything gets helped out by that.